Good afternoon, Standard 8 students. Now, today I shall be teaching you The Shoemaker by Charles Dickens. Okay. Now, the shoemaker is in prison and he has got some visitors who have come to see him. Okay. So now I shall read and explain. Good day, said Monsieur Defarge, looking down at the white head that bent low over the shoe making. Now, Monsieur Defarge had wished a person good day, but the person whom he wished was found looking down, and his white head could be seen, and he was bent, he was concentrating in making shoes, means he was stitching. It was raised for a moment. What was raised for a moment? That head, which the author says was bent down. So he raised his head, and a very faint voice responded to the salutation, as if it were at a distance. Now, when the head raised, okay, and in a very weak, feeble voice was replied, and it appeared, it was so weak, so faint, it appeared as if the person is speaking from a distance. So when a person speaks from a distance, so very slightly or very weakly you can hear, a very low tone or sound could be heard. So he says, good day. So he replied, good day. You are still hard at work, I see. Now, the person who said good day first, that is Monsieur Defarge, he tells the shoemaker that I could see that you are very busy with your work. After a long silence means the listener paused without uttering a word for some time. The head was lifted for another moment. Then again the shoemaker lifted his head, and the voice replied, yes, I am working. Now this time a pair of haggard eyes had looked at the questioner before the face had dropped again. Now this time what happens when the person responded, yes, I am busy with my work, then haggard eyes means a very tired eyes or exhausted eyes looked at the person who was speaking to him. Then again his face dropped and he continued to do his work. Work means he was stitching shoes. Now, how did the person get that voice? Such soft, weak, faint voice. So the faintness of the voice was pitiable and dreadful. So the faintness, when you hear this man speak, okay, it is very pitiable, pathetic. You will feel sorry for the person, and also you will feel very dreadful, very scared. Okay. A kind of a terror feeling comes when you hear the voice. It was not the faintness of the physical weakness. So that voice that came out from the shoemaker's mouth was not because he was physically weak. Though confinement and hard work, fair no doubt had their part in it. Okay. Now, confinement means where you are forced to live in a room or in a prison. So perhaps the weakness was because he was either in a closed room or in prison. And that was one of the reasons that he was not able to speak in a powerful voice. Its deplorable peculiarity was that it was the faintness of solitude and disuse. Now, because he was either kept in a closed room for a long time, or maybe he was in prison for a long time, so he was not able to socialize with anyone. So, solitude means loneliness. So, since he was all by himself and he did not have the practice of speaking to people, since he was lonely, maybe isolated, or in solitude, he had nobody to speak to. So that could be one of the reasons why he had lost the power of his voice, his strength. That is why the voice appeared to be very faint, very weak, very feeble, because it was not in regular use. It was like the last feeble echo of a sound made long and long ago. So when he replied, it appeared as if this man has now begun to speak after a long, long, long period of time. I want, said Defarge, who had not removed his gaze from the shoemaker, who to let him a little more light here, you can bear a little more. Now I want, said Defarge. Now he was shocked. But he did not have a proper glance at the shoemaker because there were insufficient light. So he says, so let some more light come into the room. He says, you can bear a little more. Because usually what happens, these prisoners are deprived of sunlight. Okay, or maybe the heat. So sometimes when they are exposed suddenly, then they are unable to bear it. He says, no, we'll open for some more light, which is tolerable. The shoemaker stopped his work, looked with a vacant air of listening. Now the shoemaker stopped his work and he looked with a vacant air of listening, means he was blank. The person was talking to him, but he only knows somebody, some figure is talking to him. Who is the person? What is the person speaking to? He does not know. He was completely blank. At the floor on one side of him, then similarly at the floor on the other side of him, and then upward at the speaker. So here the shoemaker was looking towards the right hand side of the floor, then he was looking to the left hand side, and then he looked at the person who was speaking to him. Now, this behavior was very similar when you are feeling very shy. Okay, so you don't know what to do, you feel very odd, you feel very awkward to speak to somebody for the first time. So, that is how the shoemaker was reacting when Monsieur Defarge was speaking to him. The half open door was opened a little further. A broad ray of light fell into the garret. Now what happened? They opened the door slightly so that some more or sufficient light could come in. And then the light fell into the garret. The garret is a top floor or an attic room. In simple words, we can say a storeroom. Okay. And showed the workman with an unfurnished shoe upon his lap. So when the light fell into the room, they saw that the shoemaker was dealing with an unfinished shoe in his lap, pausing in his labor. His few common tools and various scraps of leather were at his feet and on his bench. So when the light fell into the room, they could see that certain scrap of leather, certain tools of the shoemaker were scattered here and there, next to the bench, maybe on the floor. Means it, in a very untidy, it was in a mess. Okay. He had a white beard, raggedly cut very roughly, but not very long. A hollow face means a sunken cheek, and exceedingly bright eyes. His yellow rags of shirt lay open at the throat. Means he wore a shirt, but his button was open right up to the throat and showed his body to be withered and worn. Okay. Withered means turning wrinkled. Okay. Due to maybe old age or maybe due to negligence. Okay. He and his old canvas frock, loose stockings, and all his poor tatters of clothes had in a long seclusion from direct light and air, faded down to such a dull uniformity of parchment yellow that it would not have been hard to say which was which. Now, the kind of clothes the shoemaker had was pale, was fading away. It was torn and tattered and all that. Now, this thing happens when something is neglected and kept. Even at your home, you will see any kind of clothes that is just left uncared for. The color fades away, then it tears on its own. Now, sometimes the light also shows that the color is very pale. Okay. Now you cannot differentiate. It is due to the light that is making the clothes look old, torn, and tattered, or is it actually torn and tattered due to negligence of the person wearing those clothes? So now I will keep it till here. I will not rush this lesson. The next part I will explain in the next class. So I have already sent the chapter, the name of the chapter, the name of the author, okay, and the word meanings. So you will follow the same format that I have already posted in your group, and you will write the word meanings and learn it. Okay. Thank you.